All right, so it looks like quite a few people have hopped on now. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 25-26 funding round webinar for the Charter School Facility Grant Program, also known as SB740. I'm Elizabeth Mendez, one of the lead program analysts, and I'll be guiding you through today's session, along with colleagues Kim Nguyen and Daniel Madrid. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of the California School Finance Authority, Katrina Johansson, who will be offering a few opening remarks to kick things off. Katrina, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks everyone for making time this morning to learn more about the SB740 program. Elizabeth and her team have put in a lot of hours and work to provide you with a presentation that is very informative. I do want to note that this is a information only presentation, and that any information that we discuss here we obviously will be evaluating as part of your application. So questions about eligibility and funding are always determined in writing after we have a complete application. But with that, I will turn it back over to Elizabeth, and we hope you all enjoy the presentation.
All right, thank you, Katrina. So before we dive in, we have a few housekeeping notes. So please keep your microphones muted and cameras off during the presentation. We ask that questions focus specifically on the 25-26 funding round and the application process. So most questions will be addressed via email after the webinar. You can enter your questions in the chat or email them directly to the SB740 inbox. And finally, the online application portal will open after this webinar. The link will be shared in the chat and via the lister. You can also find it directly on the SB740 website. So the Charter School Facility Grant Program has been administered by the California School Finance Authority since the 2013-2014 fiscal year. This program helps charter schools across California offset facility lease and rent cost, and will walk you through everything you need to know to apply for this year's funding round. The purpose of this webinar is to help you understand how the program works, how to apply, and what's changed for 25-26. Please keep in mind, schools must submit a new application every year for each funding round. Prior rounds have been oversubscribed, and likely this funding round will be no different. Annual funding is not guaranteed over the long term, and if you're ever unsure, always consult the authority staff in writing. So as Katrina mentioned, today's presentation is for general guidance. So here's an overview of what we'll cover today. We'll walk you through the program overview, eligibility criteria, application steps, lease documentation, appraisal requirements, and reimbursable cost calculations. Towards the end, we'll also go over important dates and resources. So for the 25-26, the governor's proposed budget includes $183.4 million for the Charter School Facility Grant Program. This follows a steady increase from prior years, reflecting a growing demand and rising lease cost. To qualify, schools must either have 55% or more of their students eligible for free and reduced price meals, or be located in an elementary attendance area that meets that threshold, with admissions preference for students in that area. Now let's talk about how the award is calculated. It's based on the lesser of the two values. So 1,471 per unit of average daily attendance, or 75% of the school's eligible reimbursable lease cost. So the example here shows a school with an ADA of 50.54. So based on LCFF multiplier, the ADA cap would be around 74,344. If their eligible rent costs are 60,000, then 75% of that, or for about so 45,000 becomes the projected award. So if the round is oversubscribed, the actual award may be prorated. Now, moving on to the eligibility and best practices. To be eligible, a school must operate in a leased facility not owned by a school district or county office, offer classroom-based instruction, be in good standing with their authorizer, so no pending corrective action or revocation notices, follow all applicable laws around conflicts of interest and transparency. So COI vetting will be changing in May. To align with our 2023 state audit recommendations, including an addition of a statement of economic interest form 700, disclosing school officials' financial interest. So those details will be provided in May. So make sure that you are subscribed to the listserv. And then also operate as a nonprofit and complete a legal status questionnaire disclosing any legal or regulatory issues. So just make sure that strong relationships with your authorizer and clear documentation are key. Now I will hand it off to my colleague, Daniel Madrid.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Daniel Madrid. I will be going over the SC20 form that needs to be submitted when you apply, or if you've already applied in the past, you really don't need one, but if there's ever a name change, address change, uh, email change, contact change, a new form will be needed. And these forms are pretty easy to follow. I am always available to help in the future if you need any help filling out this form. Um, these forms we have to submit to the state controller's office. It's the only way we can get you into the system. So that way we can get you disbursements in the future. Elizabeth, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. The hardest part about this form is generally section 1. Name, this is the name that is submitted to the IRS, and this is where a lot of issues happen. So if you are down here in the examples we have, if you are ABC Charter Inc., and that's the way you are registered with the IRS, and if you submit this form as just ABC Charter, unfortunately the form will be rejected and it'll have to be resubmitted. This is generally no problem. The only downside is it does take a little while to process. So if there's any issues, it can lead to delay in disbursements in the future. Again, I will be available to discuss this with anyone if they need help with these forms in the future. After that, it's the business name on the form in section 1. That will be the school's name. So if you're ABC Charter Inc. and the school is the ABC Charter School, that's where it'll go. And then you'll put your address, this city, state, zip, your contact email. Then you fill out section 2. Section 3 will be your federal employer identification number. Section 4, and then you can't see it here on the little cutout, but section 5 is the unauthorized signer for the school. And then after that, you can submit it to us, and then we'll get it processed. The more forms you have to turn in, will take a little bit longer to get through, but generally we can get it through in about a day or two. And after that, once you're into the system, again, any future disbursements, we can get them out to you in a timely manner. We do recommend, though, in the future, if you have any changes, if there's a school name change or a mailing address change, we'd ask you to let us know. That way we can be ahead of the game and get the address and all the contact information changed. That way, there's no delay in disbursements to you because we want you to have your money and not be delayed. And again, if there's any questions about these forms, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help with this. And after this, I'd like to turn it over to the next presenter, Kim Nguyen.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Nguyen, and I will be going over the application overview. The online application will be available on CSFA's website on Thursday, April 10th, that's today, at 11 a.m. The application deadline is Tuesday, September 2nd at 5 p.m. Please note that late applications may not be funded or accepted. Only online applications will be accepted. If you have technical questions or need support submitting your application, please contact the authority early at SB740@treasurer.ca.gov. Next slide, please. Second application period. Please note that this is for first-year charter schools only, which are schools that anticipate beginning operations as a charter school in the fiscal year they submit an application. The application period for first-year charter school opens on Monday, September 15, and closes on Wednesday, October 15. Next, please. Applications. Applications should be submitted under the school's name. Documents must be a PDF with a maximum file size of 5,000 kilobytes or 5 megabytes. Documents to submit with your application: current valid charter agreement, approved authorizing board resolution regarding petition approval, list of board members, completed legal status questionnaire, also known as LSQ, and certification signature pages. DocuSign is acceptable. Other documents such as board meeting minutes, resolutions, facility appraisals, and updated leases if applicable. Next, please. Lease agreements. All facility and lease agreements must be current and fully executed by all parties. Each lease agreement should be scanned and uploaded separately. Please save by using the following naming convention: applicant dash facility street address dash term. For example, XYZ Charter dash 123 Main Street dash 2021 to 2025. Important to note, each facility or rental agreement per facility site should be uploaded separately. Please combine any corresponding amendment and original lease as a single document with the most recent amendment first. Next, please. And I will hand this back to Elizabeth. Elizabeth?
Sorry about that. Here we go. Thank you, Kim. So when it comes to your facility and lease agreements, there are a few different scenarios to keep in mind. You do not need to resubmit your lease if you already submitted it in the most recent funding round and the lease has not changed. However, a new facility or lease agreement must be submitted if you've moved into a facility not previously occupied by the school, your lease includes a new or additional square footage, or you've signed a new lease because the previous one expired or was renegotiated. The only exception is if your existing lease includes a renewal option that's already on file, then and was executed by both parties, then in that case you're good. We won't count it as a new facility agreement. Let's look at a few examples of when you do need to submit a new facility or lease agreement. Let's say you increased the square feet. It's considered a new agreement, therefore please submit. You signed a new lease with a new landlord. It's a new agreement as well, so please submit a new agreement. You've exercised a renewal option in last year's lease. So that's considered a multi-year agreement, so no submission is needed. And then the final example, you open a new site. That is a new agreement. So that will be, you will need to submit a new lease agreement. So the key thing to remember is if anything has changed from last year, we do need to see that new lease. And as always, make sure it's fully signed and scanned as a single PDF. All right, so now for independent appraisals.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah.
I was muted and I was going on by myself. Apologies, everyone. Independent
worries.
appraisal. Appraisal request. Independent appraisal will be required based on the following. Applicant meets program eligibility requirements. Applicant's facility has a new facility agreement. Please note that facility should already be constructed and occupied by students. What is in the contents of the appraisal? The appraisal shall be consistent with the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, or the USPAP, and at a minimum contains the following items. It must be completed by a certified general appraiser licensed by the California Department of Real Estate Appraisers. The appraiser shall not be a related party as defined in section 10170.14, section A3 of the regulation of a regulation. Intended client shall be the charter school. User shall be the California School Finance Authority for charter school facility grant program eligibility. Provide a fair market rent analysis, including a signed certification consistent with language found in the USPAP. And we want to stress that we are looking for the fair market rent, which is the amount of money a property would rent or lease for if it was available at the time the appraisal was conducted. Next, please. Reimbursable lease cost. So instead of just reading out the written example on the left, I want to explain the chart to you line by line. So please take a look at the chart. So here is an example of how your eligible lease cost or reimbursable rent is calculated each year. So this is our example right here. This is XYZ charter. They applied to SB740 for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 with a lease agreement for 25,000 square feet. They submit an appraisal that says that the fair market rent is 125,000 annually. Their actual rent is 100,000, thus making their reimbursable rent for that year $100,000. So for the next fiscal year 21-22, their cap type is now COLA. We apply COLA of 2.71% because that's the COLA for that specific year to the eligible lease cost of the prior year, or 100,000, and that will bring us to $102,710. Their actual rent is 105,000, but their eligible lease cost will for fiscal year 21-22 will be $102,710. Look at for fiscal year 22-23. Their cap type remains at COLA once again because nothing has changed. Once again, we're applying COLA of 3.26 to the previous year reimbursable rent of $102,710, and that will give us $106,058. Their actual rent for that year is $110,000, but their reimbursable rent is $106,058.35 for that year. And for the next year, for fiscal year 23-24, XYZ Charter renews the lease agreement with an increase of 27,500 square feet. This would trigger an appraisal since that's considered a new agreement. And they submit the appraisal to us that says the fair market rent is 129,000, which is lower than the actual rent of 130,000. So the appraisal will cap the award for that year at $129,000. For the year after that, for fiscal year 24-25, the cap type is COLA once again. And like before, we apply COLA of 2.31% to prior year eligible lease cost of $129,000, and that will give us $131,979. Their actual rent is $135,000, but they will get $131,979.90. Next, please.
All right, so let's now go deeper into how award caps are calculated. There are two types of caps that can affect your reimbursement. The first is the COLA award cap, and the second is the appraisal award cap. So first, the COLA award cap applies when you're continuing a lease from a prior year. For the 25-26 funding round, the proposed COLA adjustment is 2.43%. This is calculated based on prior year eligible rent and lease cost. And now second, the appraisal award cap. So that comes into play when you have a new lease or added square footage. In this case, reimbursement is capped at the concluded fair market rent value based on your independent appraisal. So please submit your appraisals as early as possible to ensure your disbursements are processed on time. All right, so now moving on to data and statistics. So this slide gives a snapshot of how the program has evolved over time. We're seeing an increased demand year over year, both in terms of the number of applicants and the total eligible lease cost. In recent years, actual lease costs have often exceeded the appropriated funding, which is why submitting by the deadline is so important. Keep in mind, some of the figures shown here are based on projections and may change once final applications are processed and the funding round has been closed out. And then just to, make it clear, the total allocations for 22-23 and then 23-24, the other cost is included in the allocation, and it was 30 million for those 2 years. For this new funding round, 25-26, we did not have an allocation for other costs in the proposed budget. You can still submit if you don't have any lease costs and are looking for facility costs in case that we do get some funding once the governor's enacted budget is finalized in the summer. And then just to continue, here you can see the growth trend more clearly. In the past, the governor's budget has responded to rising demand with one-time funding increases, as mentioned, like the 30 million added in 22-23 and 23-24. However, this type of funding isn't guaranteed and can change with the state's budget outlook. So that's for the other cost. It also reinforces the importance of accurate applications, complete documentation, and staying on top of key deadlines. So make sure you submit on time as the recent funding rounds have been oversubscribed and we cannot accept delayed applications.
And here we have our upcoming events. As you note, April 10th will be the beginning of the funding round, which will be opened very shortly. September 12th is the day that it'll be closed, so please get everything in by then. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're here to help, and it's a lot easier to help at the start than it is, say, September 1st, which is a holiday, I believe. And then we have an opening again for September 15th. This is only for first-year charter applicants, and that'll be closing on October 15th. Elizabeth, next slide, please. And here is where you can find all of our reference material. A lot of it's on our website. We have our FAQ, a link to our current regulations, a link to the SCD 204 form, the EIN information. This is where we can look up your EIN to know the name that you're registered under the IRS. And also, we do recommend that you join our listserv. That way you can stay up to date on all our email blasts from meeting agendas to even this one, the webinar registration.
Here is our contact information. Please reach out if you need any assistance. Our website is up at the top. This is our main website, SB740 at treasurer.ca.gov. Elizabeth, Daniel, myself, and other program analysts, information is on there. Occasionally, you will see us reaching out for various things such as updated leases, appraisals, and whatnot. Will the slideshow be emailed to us? It will be, please give us a couple of dates so we can upload the webinar slides, also as well as the recording on our webpage or on our SB740 website. And I think this concludes it. Next, please.
Yes. So that concludes our presentation for the 25-26 funding round of the Charter School Facility Grant Program. Thank you all for attending. A few final reminders. The application portal will open at 11 a.m. today. You can access it through the SB740 website. We've also shared the link in the chat and through the listserv. If you have any questions specific to your school or application, please email us at the sb740@treasurer.ca.gov email, and our team will follow up with you. So we appreciate your time and engagement, and we look forward to supporting your school through this application process. We hope you have a good day. We will stop the recording and answer a few of the Q&A.